So please give a very warm welcome to it.
Oh, again, hey. Yeah, I'm fishing already, so yeah, what I'm going to catch now? No fish. Why not? Do somebody know what is a React hook? Nobody knows what hooks are. React hooks. Okay, that's quite good. Okay, sure. Let's take this thing and this silly thing off. I'm a silly Dutchman, huh? Okay, I'm Peter Eijgermans. It's a little bit strange name, I think, for this country, yeah, with the E and an I-E-G. Okay, it's not normal for you, I think, but it is possible in Holland, such a name. And I'm working for Ordina. It's a big company, or how big? 4,000 people are working there. And I work for the department JS Roots, for JavaScript and for Frontend. And I starting now to talk about React and hooks. Here, this is a product card, silly card. You can shop there your hooks and your bites and your fishing pole, or do you call that fishing rod? And this is what we're going to make with components in comparison with also with hooks, React hooks. And how can we do that? First, I want to explain what are components in React. Okay, and I also explain a little bit about React. What is JSX, and how do we build this product card in combination with the components and state and hooks. This is the repo. You can here we can get the code. Perhaps you can make a picture of it.
There were 11 of you.
Sorry?
There were 11 of you.
Yeah. I know, yeah. Strange. No, I like 11. That's it. That's what is a component? Okay, you can say it's independent, reusable bits of code. You can also say a component is nothing more than a function which receives data and do some logic and returns a view or or HTML. And how do we do that in React? We have to now in React we have function components. It's nothing more than a function with a name, and it always starts with a capital letter, and it receives data, properties, and it returns a view. It's a very simple component, simple function, and it returns HTML in combination with JavaScript, and we call this combination JSX, because you can also there is also JavaScript in the curly brackets, a message, and that is possible in JSX. And we export also my product, so I can also import this function in another component. That is why I export it underneath. Now let's describe a simple talk in the beginning. And you can call this function in another component with this JSX style. So you call it product, and you see that you can see that I pass in the message sharp, and it will show you the message shark hook. So components are nothing more than this, a function which receives data and returns a view. So that is quite simple. And how do we render a main component in an application? This is we use here the render method from the React DOM, and then we can this method, render method, has two arguments. Your main entry component This is the product in this application, simple application. And also the second argument is your HTML root element, where you want to show your application. So HTML root element can be defined here in the index HTML, for example. And you have also the possibility of components in components. You can also place a nested structure. Here you see also how you do it in code. Here you have app components, and it's underneath you see that I call render DOM render, and it starts up the app component. And in the upstairs you see the app component, and it returns the shopping cart with a message. And the message comes from the product component. That's the second component, second function. And it displays the message, I'm a red product, of course. Okay, the tutorial I'm going to make now, the shopping cart I'm going to make with products. This is the shopping cart, and upstairs you have the total items and the total costs. That is, you can say that is we call it the shopping cart, and the products you can select. And this is made of hooks, of course. But what are hooks? Hooks are nothing more than JavaScript functions, you can say, which hooks into the state and into lifecycle events. We will see. And why hooks? Yeah, it is. You can split your component into smaller functions, and it is easier to use and to test. Let's start with the useState hook. Why do I use this? I want to preserve the state in my application. What is the state? The state is nothing more than the memory in your application. And what is the memory in my application? Let's go back. The shopping cart itself. I want to preserve the values of how much items I've selected upstairs and what is the total price. And I preserve that with my setState hook. Let's go back to the use of useState hook, sorry. And how do you implement that? You import it from React, useState, and finally you can use the useState. And the useState will return here a state variable and a function, setColor in this example, to update the state variable color. And on the right-hand side, you see that it has one argument, that is the initial value. So the color is red, initial. Here you see a very simple application about how you render the text. My favorite color is now red. You see that I initialize my useState hook with red, and that I also define in the return section a button where I can change the color to blue, and I do that with the setColor function I've defined in the useState hook. So that's quite simple. So when you push the button, you get the text, my favorite color is blue. There are some rules for hooks. Hooks, you have to place it always upstairs in the function in the component, because then the state is preserved well in the application. And it only works in function components. You have also the old style of React is that we use class components. I don't explain it now, but you have to use function components in this way, and for using the hooks. And you cannot use hooks in if statements, and also not in for loops. This is what I say already, the rules. This is where you're going to make. We create a product card, and this is simple hard-coded text. My shopper card is 0 items, price. And also I displayed here my hook, and some add and remove buttons. but this is not working or not yet, of course. I define here two use state hooks. The first one is for my or do you say state variable card for my total items, and also a state variable total for my total price. And it has an initial value 0, the total price, of course. And the card items is an array, an empty array. This is on the right-hand side. You define the initial value in the argument. You see a little bit more code. You see a hard-coded list of products at the top. And I also define here the component, the product component, and I define here also the hooks. I just told you, use state hooks for the card and the total price. What you see in the return section that I loop here through the products via the map function, product map. And I also, in the loop, I also define here a button where I can click on, and I call here the add function. You see, add product. And the add function is also defined above the return, and it will add the product via the set card and set total function I've defined already. I make also use of the set set card. You see that I make use of a spread operator, 3 dots. So I can add here my new added product at the end of the list then, in a safe way. Let's go on to the use reducer hook. It's another hook. It's also a little bit the same like use state hook, also for state, but it has more, it's more powerful, it's smarter. It has 2 arguments, a reducer function and also an initial value. And you recognize it that the reducer function looks a little bit the same like what we have seen already in the code to add the product. Here I replaced all my use state hooks with the use reducer hooks, and I make use of reducer functions to calculate the cards and the total price. Here is the same code of the application, and then I replace it in already. You see the use reducer hook, and I also loop here through my products again. Also an add function. It's not very different than my use state hook, you see, but use reducer hook is quite smart. You can make it smarter with an action object. That is a standard pattern in the reducer functions. And how do we do that? Now you see the old way I did it. Use reducer hook, and I pass here a product in the add function. When you use the action object, you can do more than this. You can make, an action object contains here a product, the product itself, but also a type I define here. And you see that I pass now my action in the set card and in the set total, and in this example set card. And also I have a type add and remove for enabling the add and remove button. So you see here again the product component with the use reducer hook, and you see that I have now more logic to handle this. I have a type, add and remove, and I can use that in my card reducer upstairs. I pass in my action upstairs, and I can switch case it with the add and the remove, and in the remove section I find the product I want to remove, and I splice it out with update splice, and then the product is removed. Yeah, we have talked about a lot of hooks now. This is also a very interesting hook, the use effect hook. Let's talk about it. Use effect hook is for handling side effects. So, for example, manipulating the DOM, or logging, or fetching data. So that's what we're going to do now. I want to fetch data also from over the network, and use effect hook is better for this. It has two arguments, a function and also a dependency to react on. What we see here is the same component again, but now with use effect hook. What do we do here? I also define a user. That's, I've talked about it. Also, I define underneath a new use state hook for products, for preserving the products. And I also have a sets products method for that. And I use that set product method in my use effect. Use effect hook will always be triggered, will always run at the first render. So when your component rendered something, shows something on screen, it will execute it, and it will fetch my product data via the fetch product data function, and it will set in the products. It will set the products via the set products function. But we have a problem here. We could have a problem here because when you fetch the data, it will set the products, and it will re-render the products. And when it will re-renders, it comes in a loop because the component is re-rendered, and the use effect reacts on a re-rendering. So infinite loop. So you have to define a property at the end. So I've defined here an empty array. The brackets there at the use effect, and that is it will also always stop at the first render then. So you have a few combinations with use effect. You have when you don't use the brackets at the end, then it runs on every render. When you use the use effect for fetching data, for example, with the brackets on, it will only the first render, it will fetch the data. And you can also react on a state property in your application. So that is, I'm not ready yet, but I think it is now time for a good fish, I think. Where it is. Yeah, yeah, I got one. I made it in the plane, so this is good. So I thought, well, how do I do this? Because it's a little bit, make it sound? No. Well, I catch. We have learned all the hooks now for this evening. We need, but we have one thing to do still, and that is the custom hook. That is very important because we also want to share our hooks with other components. So that is the main strength of hooks. How do we do that? We create a separate JavaScript file for, in this example, for all my state hooks. And then I return that hook, and I can use it in other components. How do we do that? I create a separate JavaScript file. I name it use state hook. Yeah, you have to name it always with a use. It has to start with use. And I pull in here. I put in here all my state hooks I've used until now. And also the car reducer I've already talked about. And you have to in the upstairs use state hooks, you have to return all your state variables, the card and the products, and the set card and the set products functions if you return it. You have also underneath, of course, export your use state hook, so you can import it in other components. You can use it everywhere now, this logic. This is our product component again. And this here I import my custom use states hooks. And I can use it in this way. And it is much shorter code. And also you can reuse it, easier to test also. So what I've talked about, I've talked about how do you make such a product card with components, with hooks. And I've also written a lot of articles on DZone, also about hooks, also another article about hooks. And over micro frontends, I'm also busy with now. Are there questions? Okay. Thank you.